Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into today's conversation. For a long time, I genuinely believed that I was the problem. I thought that I was too sensitive, too emotional, too different, or just too much in some environments. And I think that a lot of women quietly carry those beliefs without realizing how deeply they shape the way that we move through life. For me, I internalized everything. For example, I always assumed that I was wrong. So I was always apologizing for my thoughts or opinions, or for even the way that I interpreted things differently. I overanalyzed everything constantly, which is something I still struggle with to this day. So always worried about if I'm doing it right or if people will judge me. I was always trying to fix myself. And what I mean by that is how I talked, how I spoke, how I showed up. Um, I had a belief that acceptance had to be earned. And I think finally, I always felt hyper aware in any environment. Essentially, I became hyper aware of myself in almost every room that I walked into. There were times in my life where I felt like I didn't fully belong anywhere. And I've touched on this in previous conversations, but to give you some examples of how that showed up for me, um, in some spaces, I felt like I wasn't Black enough. I've been told that I sound white on the phone. And then I've been in spaces where I felt like I was too Black, where I've had people asking about or touching my hair or critiquing the way that I spoke, but in jest. Code switching. I've touched on this in previous conversations as well. There were times where I never really felt like I could just be myself. There was always this internal conflict that I was battling, and I was constantly adjusting myself depending on the room that I was in. To sum it up, I spent a lot of time adjusting myself depending on who I was around without realizing how disconnected from myself I was becoming. And that disconnection ultimately led to me utilizing perfectionism as a survival mechanism. And just to give you a visual or try to shape how that showed up for me, it was me feeling a constant pressure to perform. I always felt like there was no room for error. I was always over preparing for everything. I constantly felt a need to prove myself. And I constantly felt like overworking would then justify my worth. So essentially, I thought that if I could just be perfect enough, prepared enough, or productive enough, then maybe I would feel secure in who I was. But what I didn't realize at that time was that those survival mechanisms ultimately became my identity. And I'll share in a moment what that looked like for me, but let me know in the comments if you can relate to any of it. So, how that showed up for me was me being hyper independent. Very difficult to ask for help, and it was very difficult for me to accept help if offered. Overthinking, I've talked about it a million times, and it's something that I'm still struggling with, and it's something that I'm still working through to this day. Um, Masking my emotions. Let me know if any of this sounds familiar. Someone asks you, "How are you doing?" "I'm okay." "No, I'm fine. I'm good." "No, I got it. No, really, I'm okay." Does that sound familiar to you? Being afraid to be honest about how you feel and your emotions, maybe not showing your emotions at all. That's something that I did a lot. I pretended a lot. Um, Perfectionism, just talked about that a moment ago. People pleasing, that was another huge part for me. I was always the giver. I was always the helper. I was always the fixer. And I enjoy helping people. And so there was nothing wrong with that to a degree, but when it gets to a point where you are putting your needs behind someone else's, it can become very problematic and it can become very problematic very quickly. And that's how it showed up for me. Um, Constantly monitoring myself. Talked about this a second ago as well. How am I talking? How do I look? Um, how am I showing up in certain situations or environments? So basically, I internalized survival mechanisms so deeply that I started to believe that they were my personality. And I wasn't aware of the emotional cost that would come with that, nor was I prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for the exhaustion, the burnout, or the feelings of anxiety, or the feelings of constantly feeling disconnected from myself. I wasn't prepared for constantly feeling on all the time. And I certainly wasn't prepared for never feeling fully relaxed or for never feeling like I was enough. I didn't realize how exhausting it was to constantly monitor myself, overthink everything, and carry the pressure of trying to belong. Hey everyone, if this conversation resonates with you and you would like to explore more topics like this with me each week, I invite you to join the collective by clicking on the subscribe button below. Also, please be sure to turn on your notification button so you receive a notification every week when I upload a new conversation. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to having you. So, what changed? Essentially, I came to realize that what I was doing was no longer working for me, and I wanted to change that, and I wanted to get better. So I went to therapy, and it was through therapy where I learned how thoughts can become beliefs. And also, it's where I learned about becoming self aware and also about self correcting when I found myself being caught up in those negative thoughts of the past. Um, Therapy helped me begin questioning those internal narratives that I had been telling myself all of these years. And I started to realize that environments were shaping my self perception. And I needed to figure out a way to separate myself from what I had absorbed all of those years. I started realizing that maybe I wasn't fundamentally broken. Maybe I had just spent years surviving environments that taught me to question myself. So I made it a point to really get to know myself on a deeper level, my likes and dislikes, what I'm willing to and not willing to tolerate, things like that, really getting to know myself at the core of who I am. And that's something that I thought that I knew, but the more I did the work, it became clear to me that I didn't know those answers. And what I discovered was that there is power in authenticity. There's power in truth. There's power in living your life authentically and unapologetically. I worked on releasing perfectionism and striving for everything to be perfect because I did realize that perfection is unattainable. So now instead of perfection, I strive for excellence because, in my opinion, that's something that is achievable. I worked on and still work. It's daily work, right? It doesn't stop. I worked on honoring myself and being okay with honoring myself. And as I said, that's a day-to-day thing. It's always a work in progress, right? Um, I'm really careful about how I show up and intentional about ensuring that I'm not dimming my light, that I'm not shrinking. I do my best to not over explain everything. That's something that I'm still working through, and it's still a struggle for me, but I'm still working through it. I'm learning to trust myself more, which is also very hard for me. Um, it's something that I work on every day, but I'm learning to trust myself more. And every day I'm working to redefine my worth internally. Um, and again, it's not something that happens overnight. It's work. It's something that you have to want to do, and something that that I feel should be intentional. And so that's something that I strive to do every day, is redefining my internal worth. Um, so those are just a few different things that I have been working through over all of these years, and how different ways and how I'm trying to return to who I am and how I'm returning to myself. And there was something else I discovered while doing this work, and that was that my healing started when I stopped trying to become someone else and started reconnecting with who I already was underneath everything that I had absorbed. I've been learning that slowing down and creating more intentional moments for myself have been really important for me in this season of my life. Journaling, reflection, and even small grounding routines have helped me reconnect with myself more honestly. So, if you're someone who's also trying to create more intentional calm in your everyday life, I'll link a few of the tools I personally use below. So, ladies, there's one final thought that I would like to leave you with, and that is that maybe sometimes healing starts when we stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and instead start asking, "What have I been carrying about myself that was never fully mine to begin with?" And as always, before I go, I want to leave you with my gentle reminder that no matter what you're going through, please remember that up until this point, your success rate is 100%. You are still standing. You are still here. So please keep going. Please keep moving. Everything is going to be okay. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.